Well, I actually go by another name. I am Mary Ann Mcallister. And my husband was in the Civil War. So I wanted to talk to you tonight about some of the things that happened to him, as well as the area people and the flag that the women of Grigsville made the flag for the boys from Company H to carry in the war. Now, you know, we don't do that anymore. Do you know what the function of the flag was? It was like communication. Hey, go over here. We're going to go that way. They directed in that. They didn't have cell phones and all that kind of thing. But anyway, my name is Mary Ann Mcallister. Was married to Edwin, and he joined the military right after Abe Lincoln called for 300,000 men that he needed on for the war effort. And that was, a lot of the boys were young. Most of the people, the soldiers, were about 16 to 25. So for a while that took a lot of the young people out of the various areas that was in the Civil War. They mustered in at Butler Camp in Springfield, and they didn't have a train or cars to get them over there. They marched from here over to Butler Camp. And they were Company H of the 73rd Regiment of the Volunteer Infantry. And just to remind you, you probably know that a company is made up of 100 soldiers, and that a regiment is 1,000. And they each have their own leader, so to speak. They were mustered in on August the 21st in 1862, and they marched with their flag. That flag is the one that they actually marched with. This doesn't exist yet. And that one was a big one, and I'll get to that in a few minutes here. There were 10 soldiers from Grigsville, out of that 100, plus 57 that listed Pike County. So we're not sure what town, but they were Pike County men. So that was a total of 68 men of that company was from this area. 2 listed Quincy, and 18 listed Adams County. So that leaves a remainder of about 13. There were 99 total, and the other ones were from the area, but no, around here. James Jack was named the colonel of the 73rd Regiment, and he was a former president of Methodist College in Quincy. And his influence resulted in lots of ministers joining the Civil War. And in fact, so many of them joined the 73rd Regiment that they just called that regiment the Preacher's Regiment. Then it sort of caught on. I'm sure they, with their influence, they influenced others to join, and Regiment 115 and 117 were high number of pastors. The ages, the youngest soldier in Company H was probably Willie Jock. That was the colonel's son. was 14, and he became the drummer boy for the regiment. And that was quite common. The the very young, many times the mothers did not want those kids in the war, but sometimes they would run away. Sometimes the fathers would give them permission. I'm sure that he got the permission of his dad because his dad was the colonel. In general, I'm very proud of the boys that left from Griggsville and Pike County. They were young, but they were strong, and they did great things. And the flag itself shows you the names of the battles that they had a major part in. They couldn't just put the name on their flag. They had to be chosen by the colonel that approved their name to be there because they had a major job in that battle. So after a while, you can look at that and see all the different names and follow the path that they did. They started out in Springfield and then went down to Kentucky and on around. They were down in the south and they came up around Atlanta where they had major battles. They went into the war because I'm sure they didn't know what they were getting into, but it, it was manly. But it wasn't for money, for sure. The first payment started in Springfield, and they left there, and they were advanced $40 each. And out of that $40, 25 of it was advance payment for being a soldier, for fighting the enemy, and $2 for the premium, and I haven't found out what that was all about. And then $13 for a month's pay, so that came up to $40. And a lot of those young kids would send their money home to help their family because they were major parts of the work world. And they went to war. Dad had to find somebody else to help him with the farm work. When the regiment was formed in Springfield, 972 young men. Let me give you the breakdown of what happened to their success or their end. 10% were killed in battle, 98. Now this is 1,000 men, right? Well, it's 972 to be exact. 10% died of disease. You've probably heard that before, that there was more or as many men died of health than bullets. 16 died in prison. Discharged 182, which was 18% of them were discharged due to a wound or disability. 129 transferred or were promoted. That was 13%. 29 just resigned. They went back home. 33 deserted. 1%, which was 10 people, were missing and never was accounted for. And 37%, which was 373, were mustered out at the end of the war. 373 out of 1,000. A great loss of men in the Civil War. Our Griggsville women, and I'm really proud of them. That was my home. The wives, lovers, and sisters all got together and said, we're going to sew a flag that is big, and we're proud of our men, and we want a good flag for them. So they made it out of linsey woolsey. That is a combination of wool and linen. ones that were given to them by the government, and those were silk, and they just didn't last through the years. So we were fortunate to have this flag last that long because of its kind of material. My only hope is that history will remember the huge cost of life, limb, and property as a result of that war. The war was twofold. It was to take care of the problem of slavery, but that wasn't the major problem. The major problem was the states wanting to separate and not go with each other's ideas. And they pulled the war out so that it continued to be the United States. At that time, they were, let me see, I better not say that. I'm not for sure the number of states that we had at that point. I do know, there's 34 on the flag. It comes eventually. After all, I'm getting a little old. Surely hope that there are organizations in our future that will keep history alive. And as you said, that's what this is all about. And it's a lovely museum. I've been telling people this. Go over there and see that museum. It's great. I'm proud of my husband, Edwin, and his buddy. They were the last two men that survived the war in Company H. And they were very proud of their flag. And they got together. One was 90, and 90, I think it was. 89. And one was 89. And they said, you know, we're not getting any younger. What's going to happen to our flag? Well, let's give it to somebody that enjoys history and will keep it going. I know DAR, and there's a chapter in Pittsfield. And so they gave that flag to the Nancy Ross chapter, DAR, in 1930, and asked them to preserve it, keep it going. And they named one person that said, you know, it might pass on to somebody else as long as it's through that chapter. So I wanted to tell you about my life and my husband's life, Edwin. And do you have any questions so far?
Who is the other survivor besides Edwin?
Edward Pinstone.
Edward Pinstone.
Mm-hmm. And some of the papers show it S-T-O-N, and some papers show it S-T-O-N-E. So, okay, just a minute. Well, hello. I'm Becky Leach. I grew up in Meridosha and came over here to build a house. And at my school where I taught, I was a high school teacher up north, and the people said, why do you want to live downstate? It's so skint, you know, they don't have very much going on down there. And I said, oh, that's where I'm from, and that's God's country, and I'm going back to God's country. So anyway, I'm married to Dwayne Leach, and for 55 years, and we came down and built our home over in the woods by Liberty. So that's a little about me. I joined the Daughters of the American Revolution basically because I wanted to learn how to do genealogy, and it had been a lifetime dream not to join DAR, but to do the genealogy. And when I went to a workshop, it was run by the DAR, and they said, oh, you could be in DAR. definitely. So you could, your name, Vandeventer, goes back. In fact, a little side trip here. Dwayne and I went to, I think it was our 30th anniversary, to Holland, where the Vandeventers come from. And we researched over there. And I had a book that one of the senators had made a study on. And it was a genealogy book that took us back to 1620. And you open it, the cover, and there's the church from their town, Putin. And so we went there, and we picked a day. We didn't think about it, but it was their, I don't remember the day of the week, probably Saturday, but it was their church day. And here they come out of the church in their black, long dresses, and I said to Dwayne, well, we can't go into this, you know, to bother them at going to church. So we went and got a hotel and came back the next day. Well, it was blocked then. So there was a little pub next door, so we went in and the pub, and we told the man that we would like to go into the church, and he said, no speak. So I just pulled out my book and opened it, and there's his church. It's right across the alley. Oh, he said, wait a minute, call somebody, and they came over and they could speak English, because he said no English. So we went through, and that was a thrill of my life to see the church that my ancestors went to. And if it looked at anything like it always did, it was very primitive. All the way around the three sides were benches with backs about 4 feet high. I don't know whether that maybe kept your attention. I know you couldn't look back. And then the minister was in the center on a spiral staircase, and he was up there real tall. I'd say probably 10, 15 feet above us. Well, the minister couldn't talk, but he told us a lot about the church. I was so amazed how you can talk with your hands. And he showed us the baptismal that babies were baptized with, and turned it over and showed us the date. And I really wanted to go up the steps, because in the book it showed the picture of Peter Vandeventer and his wife. And I really wanted to see it, you know. No, can't do that. They'll just fall down. And there was a gate across it, so construction-wise I couldn't go up there. Anyway, that's a side trip. But genealogy is so much fun. I really enjoy it. It's like a puzzle or a mystery. And when you get one little piece in there, you think, oh, I got it. Then you start on another piece. Well, I chose Pittsfield, DAR, because my ancestors lived on the McGee Creek. The Vandeventers lived in Brown County, and the Hanks lived on the Pike County. So I thought that would be a good thing. And my cousin lived close enough to Pittsfield, so we joined together. Took us 2 years to find the documentation. Today, you can do a lot more on computer than you could then, but we had fun doing it. I will not regret that at all. Okay, I told the story behind the flag, and now I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. Who does that on TV?
Paul
Paul Harvey. There you go. In 2004, National DAR notified all DAR chapters that they should have a list of all their property for posterity. The chapters change, and so things aren't lost. And I would say that was the case with our flag. It was given to us in 1930, and here it is, 2004, and we had no idea that one of our meetings, and somebody help me with the name. Betty Reeves said, Betty there's a whole section over there that's got DAR on it. You probably should come over and look at it. Well, we went over and looked at it, and there were some scrapbooks and things like that, but here this flag was in a glass case, thank goodness, but it was back in a corner, folded in its triangle. And we opened it up, and there inside was a paper from Edwin and Edward that gave us the property. So that was, we didn't have to go through any legal things. It was ours. And we were very taken back about this, the responsibility of doing something. And we did some newspaper articles, and Dr., I think his first name was John Schmale. And he is known as one of the authorities on Civil War flags. So he called us and said, I'd like to come and look at your flag. So we had him over, and part of the group came to view that and listen to him. And he said, you have quite a find. First place, it's in wonderful condition. There's a couple little holes in it, but wonderful condition for its age. And I think that it's a lot of the flags have battle honors. And that's, what is it that we had, 21 battles, I think. That's listed on there. So you can see those on the red and the white. They were gold. And then he said that's not completely uncommon to have those on there. But it's extremely, he says, I've only seen one or two out of my whole history of doing this with soldier honors. And that's the black print. They are put on the back of the flag under the field. So that was quite different. And he said, that could go up to $250,000. And we said, what? So we felt that we had to reserve it. So he gave us a name to go to as far as restoring it. And well, the first one that said he sent us to said, oh, it'll be at least 2 years or so before I can even get to it. Well, we didn't want to wait that long. So he gave us another one. We actually sent it to the Chicago Conservancy. And he said, it'll probably cost you near $5,000 to get it preserved. They put it on like a tag board, and they make little stitches all the way across, about 3 inches across, back and forth and up and down. And that's to hold it so that it doesn't have the weight on the fabric and cause it to have holes. Then they had to have a case built for it so that it could be airtight. They had, before they did anything to it, they froze it. And that was to get rid of any mites that was in the fibers. It has 34 stars because there was 34 states. And those stars are on the front and back. So we had to do 68 stars. And that each one of those took about an hour to do because it's all done by hand. Now the whole flag, the rows are done by machine, and that really surprised me that it's sewing machine. So that's the way we did our replica. And the reason we did a replica is because we took that to one place that wanted to see it, and they gave us there were 2 Jeep clubs. And they were so impressed with it, they ended up, I think they gave us nearly $5,000, a big amount. Lost my so that we did have them to do that, and the courthouse fellas took it up to us, for us, and brought it back. Well, no, I think Mr. Schmoley helped take it up because it was just all folded. But to come back, it's tall, and it wouldn't go into a regular truck covered. So they put it in one that was built for taller things. So anyway, we wanted to get the word out to people so that we could raise the money for it. And so we decided that if it was gonna hurt that to show every time and handle it, that we better have a replica. So Mr. Schmoley gave us a name, and we contacted her. It'll be about $1,900, but I can't get to it for, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. So we said, okay. I took a roll one day and I said, how many have you sold? Well, a lot of hands went up, and I said, well, then if the Griggsville girls could do it, we can do it. So we took the measurements so that it was the exact same size, and this was all sewn by machine, but these were put on by hand, and we left this off, the field off, so we could pass it around, and each one of us did like 3 or 4 stars, because it did take a lot of time. So that's the way we did, and we got together, it was a committee of, probably 6 of us did the stitching and the cutting and so forth. And I looked all over to find a fabric that looked sort of like that. First, I had a hard time finding the color. And then the fabric, of course, you couldn't buy woolsey linsey. So I wanted to keep it natural fibers, so we did cotton and linen together. Okay, then we had newspapers wanting the story. And then we had, you've heard of McDonald, what's his first name? Mark McDonald contacted us, or I think we contacted him and said, we got a story for you. And so he came and interviewed us and did, we had some of the ancestors that we knew, some of them started coming out and telling us that they were related to some of these men. And so we invited them, and he took a movie of that. So that's in his file if anybody was interested in purchasing them. I think they're like $25 a piece, but he did that. And then after we made that, and we had a big celebration in the park, and we were proud of that celebration. We did a lot. We had a canceled stamp. We had the flag picture on the front of the postcard, and then we had it, you have to go through a lot of forms and stuff to get it stamped to do it. We had a military Civil War musicians came, and of course we had a few political guys want to speak, and a lot of we girls made our costumes for that presentation. And then we had it all covered, and then we pulled that down and showed it at the celebration. Am I taking too long? He said that it would be about $10,000 to get it done. It ended up $5,000 for this, but it didn't cost us $5,000 for the case. I think it was like $2,000. I told you most of this. We used the flag to go around to the schools and do programs at various times. And we also did it so that we could carry it with us when we were asking for donations. That's how it started out, that we used it. And now we use it for educational purposes. our biggest thrill was when the Abraham Lincoln Museum asked to display it there for 18 months. And so there were thousands of people got to view it there. We were really excited about that. And where is the flag now? Right here in the, well, we put it in the courthouse. And then it was in there until 2 years. Has it been here 2 years
No,
or 1 year?
last year we moved it. Last year.
Last year. Okay, so we moved it from there over to here. We thought that this is a war museum, and we thought this was the better place for it, so. So that's all Becky Leach has.
Well, my name is Joyce Dyer, for anybody that doesn't know me. We were asked by our state region to put together a PowerPoint presentation to show at DAR days, which is a 3-day group of meetings. The first meeting was in Mount Vernon, Illinois. The second one was in Springfield, and then up in Isles, Illinois. And so this is what we put together. We call it the flag with 34 stars. It is presented by the Nancy Ross chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, Pike County. This is the flag that's back there on the wall as it came back from being in the war. There's the hole up here in the corner that she was talking about. There's another smaller hole over on the other side on the bottom. Measures 54 by 85 inches and field with 34 stars. Is 24 by 24, I believe. And it does have the 13 stripes on it. The flag was made by the, as Becky was saying, by the women of Griggsville, the wives, mothers, sisters, aunts, cousins, girlfriends, for the men as they left to muster in. This is a list of the battles that the flag was carried in and the men played a major part in. And as you can see, they kind of went several different places. A lot of places around Atlanta. Company H joined with Sherman's troops in Atlanta and were in several big battles there. And on the back of the flag, in black, which seemed to indicate reverence, was the names of the men who died as a result of injuries or died in the battle. Samuel Anthony, Elijah Bazin, James Biddle, Thomas Biddle, Edward Nettleton, Nathaniel Thompson, Thomas Bradbury, William Kammeyer, Nathaniel Lynn, Jeremiah Lytle, Charles McLean, John Thompson, Henry Bennett, Samuel Konauer, James Dolby, Mark Dickerson, William Dickerson, Marvin Fuller. Those were the gentlemen that were from Pike County. There were 3 from Adams County who were listed on there. Michael Collier, David Lancaster, and George Martin. And as you can kind of tell by listening to the last names, there were several brothers, cousins that were in the big Company H. Nancy Ross received the flag from the 2 remaining survivors. This is a copy of the note that was written. And this gentleman is the Edward Pinstone. This is Edwin Mcallister, Mary Ann's husband. The first picture by the tent was taken when he was about 73, and the one standing near his home was taken on his 100th birthday. And Mr. Mcallister shared the birth date with Abraham Lincoln, February 12th. Different years, but February 12th. And the city of Griggsville gave him a big party celebration type of thing to honor him on his 100th birthday. And for many years, he would put on his Civil War uniform and go around to the schools on Armistice Day, which is now Veterans Day, and give a talk to the school assemblies, the kids and the teachers. And the flag is, she was saying, was stored at the Pike County Historical Museum for a number of years. And in 2004, it was brought out and decided that something should be done to protect it and conserve it. This shows the field of stars. If you look really closely around the edges of the stars, you can see the hand stitching on them. And like Rebecca, I was kind of surprised that they were able to use sewing machines and do so much sewing on it. There's a line across the top of machine stitching. And where the arrow is, looks like a place that they might have mended while they were in the field with it. Shows some more of the stitching. It also shows close-up of some of the paint that was used. Their paint on the original bled through some. This one, it didn't bleed through like the other one did. Okay, that's another one of it just before it went off to be conserved. And this talks about Dr. Schmale and his wife that came to see our flag. And when Alice and I were giving the presentation over in Springfield, we got to meet Mrs. Schmale. She came up and talked to us and told us a little bit more about what she knew about the whole thing, and was glad to see that we were still taking care of it and going around and talking about it. This is another picture right before it went off to be conserved. And this is where they decided that because DAR, our purpose and our mission is promoting historic preservation, education, and patriotism, that was one of the reasons that they decided to go ahead and make the replica. That way they would have something they could take around and show, as opposed to having to take the original. And this shows when they were doing their measuring to get exact measurements for the sizes. And if you look up towards the top, you'll see where they're trying to match the colors in the fabric, which if anybody's tried to match reds, it's really hard to do, and so is yellow. There were a couple other ladies that had been there earlier in that day, but these were the ones that were there when the picture was taken. And there's another sewing day, and this Rebecca is up there in the corner. And as she mentioned, the Jeep Club, Two Rivers Jeep Club, donated a sizable chunk. They had a generous donation from a former regent, and many other smaller contributions. I'll get it spit out in a minute. This is a prospective member who volunteered to do some of the painting. So all of these names on here were painted by hand, just like they were on the first one. And there's another prospective member that's doing some of the painting. And this is a picture of the completed replica when it was done, with the ladies that worked on it all around. This was when the replica was presented to our club as a whole, our chapter, with Julie Creamer and Kathy Zimmerman, were regent and vice regent at the time. And this one, it was flown, I think it was flown right out here in the schoolyard. And she mentioned Illinois stories. I actually had 2 of them made, 2 30-minute stories. The first one was made on December 28th, or aired on December 28th, 2004. And when Mark McDonald came over and interviewed some of the ladies. The second one was broadcast and filmed in the spring of 2005 about the construction of the replica. And there's Rebecca kind of explaining how everything went together there. And then we had a ceremony to dedicate it. This was an invitation that was sent out to all of the state chapters, the DAR, sent out to politicians and other dignitaries around the area. And we have the revealing of the conserved flag. It was August 20th of 2005. Picture of the whole thing. The lady in this picture is Edwin Mcallister. She was the granddaughter-in-law of Edwin Mcallister. And while a lot of his family got tired of hearing his war stories, she was one that enjoyed listening to them over and over again. And that's her 3 sons and a couple of her grandkids in the picture with her.
1 son and 2 grandsons and 2 great-grandsons.
Okay?
That's actually Brian and Lily, his mother, and then Brian's 2 boys, Kurt and Tori, and their children.
Okay, thank you. I learned something tonight. These are some of the state and local officers that attended our dedication. And there's Rebecca in her dress that she made for the occasion. This is state officers, Polly Meyer and Martha Zimmerman. And a couple of our local DAR daughters. And a couple of more of our local girls. We also had Civil War reenactors that were there, along with a group that played the Civil War music. This is a picture of the postcard that we had printed up. It has the whole thing here, and then on the side it had smaller versions of it so you could get a little more of a close-up on them. Jackie or was in charge of selling the canceled Civil War postcards. We received a lot of awards. I put just a few of them on here. This is the Illinois State Regents Award for Outstanding Civil War Flag Preservation Project in April of 2006. Illinois State Organization Award for Restoration of Civil War Flag and Ceremony on April 30th, 2006. Illinois State Organization Award for Historic Preservation Project, Civil War Flag, Cultural Events and Traditions, Civil War Reenactment, April 30th, 2006. North Central Division first place winner in the category of Conservation of a Flag with Education Programs for the work of conserving an 1862 Civil War flag for school education. And a letter from Ann Mcallister, National Chairman, American Heritage, informing us that we had received an honorable mention in the 2006 NSDAR Historic Preservation and Award Contest. That was also 2006. Oh, sorry. And this was, as Becky was saying, when it was loaned to the museum over in Springfield for a special exhibit in Civil War memorabilia. Some of the ladies that were at state convention that spring that stopped to see the Civil War flag where it was hanging in the museum. And this is an article about when the chapter in June of 2013, the chapter as a whole did a field trip and went over to see the flag at the museum in Springfield. And this one was taken in May of this year, after the flag had come over here to its new home. And when you turn around, you'll be able to see it anyway. And of course, we got to have our credits page. There were a lot of people that gave me a lot of information on it. Some of what I had on there to say was stuff that Becky had already covered. We do have books available. They're $10 a piece. They give a little more of a biography of the gentlemen that were killed in battle. Tell a little bit more about the flag itself and where it came from. Does anybody have any questions?
Who prepared the PowerPoint? You did? Good.
Maybe I should have asked if it was good or not first.
No, that's good.
Do you know of the people on the names on the flag, was any of them killed carrying that flag?
I remember reading that one of them was wounded carrying it. Somebody else jumped up and picked it up and took off with it. I don't know if he died for sure.
Okay. And what happened to the pole or whatever that was fastened to?
Well,
That carried it, that had to hold on to it?
they had a cedar pole they carried it on. This one, we have another section to it, but your ceiling's not high enough.
No, over 10 feet.
Supposedly that pole was at the Historical Society, but it's never been found.
Anyway, so we only used half of our pole.
Okay.
And when we made it, that's the only thing that's different than the construction of the real one. We put a pocket in it so that we could slide it on,
Okay.
and it had nails.
We did, okay. I wondered how. Uh-huh.
I think in one of the pictures it showed, I don't showed the holes down the side.
I noticed that Barry has a flag in just pictures, looks similar to that.
Barry does have a flag, it's a Civil War flag. However, it was made out of silk. I went over and saw it last fall, and it did not hold up nearly so well as this one.
Was it made for a particular unit like this one?
It was a government issued
Oh,
flag. And those were made out of silk, and this one, the ladies over there had the foresight to make it out of something sturdy so that it would hold up and last, and it has. They do have a blanket over there that's made out of the Lindsay Woolsey fabric, and she said, you go ahead and touch it if you want to. So I gingerly touched it, but, because I didn't wanna, you don't wanna get oils and stuff off your hands, but, it felt just almost like a good heavy wool quality type stuff.
well, you made a very good replica of it.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with the making of it, because I wasn't in the group yet, but Rebecca was, and Kay was there at the time.
I didn't sell anything of it. I wasn't making that either.
So we got some newbies here in the room.
Good job.
Anything else?
There's so much rich military history in this county. And this is just tip of the iceberg of what's out there. And I thank you so much for bringing this to us and letting us have the honor of displaying this.
Well, we wanted to put it somewhere where it could be seen by the larger number of people and people who are interested in history, so.
We're proud to have it here. And like you say, this is what we have here displayed is just nothing compared to the stories that come yesterday we were speaking over at Perry, and I ran on a guy that World War II veteran that he actually knew Joe Rosenthal that took a picture of the flag on Iwo Jima.
Oh,
He was there when he took the pictures. I tell you, there's so much stuff in this county that people just keep it a secret, and all of a sudden it pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to interview the guy, put him on videotape like we've done others. And there's so much rich history here. Lincoln's heritage, on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're proud to have the flag and other things here. We focus a lot on stories like this, more so than the artifact. I mean, I like the artifacts. I love artifacts, but stories that people really like to hear and see and come to the museum to hear, and we're working on them. That's why we're videotaping this tonight, and we're videotaping veterans interviews and anything we can. But we're very happy you all came out to see this tonight. I am just tickled to death you did. I learned a lot about this flag that I didn't know.
Okay.
But,
Would you guys like to say anything?
Yeah, I have, I don't know if any of you have, been on I just got a new phone, so I got a new smartphone, but Lisa Rubel has a lot of history stuff on there, and Veterans Day, she had Edwin's picture on there, and she also had another picture of Abraham Lincoln visiting the Civil War, and the tents like these, and some of the guys was gathered around. I don't think it had the names on there, and I can't remember for sure what camp it was at, but Lillian said that Edwin had said he had met Abraham Lincoln, and when I saw this picture, I don't know if that was Edwin in that picture or not, but there were several of the guys in the Civil War that was around this picture and around the tents, and Abraham Lincoln was standing there, and she had it on the website.
I grew up
If you grew up in Pike County, I think Selena of it or something.
that might be the picture we have in our Civil War tent. Over
No,
here.
it,
Oh, with
not
the flag?
Edwin's, yeah, I gave you that,
No, it's in the,
Oh, in the tent.
Oh,
in
in
the
the
tent
tent.
here.
Well, that could be. I
It's
haven't seen
one
it.
of them taken on the Antietam battlefield with Lincoln and Hatch.
Could be, I
Yeah.
didn't see that, yeah.
Okay. We'll show it here, and when we're done, I'll show you the
Okay.
picture.